Anybody with a question? Nick on the right side.
Mark, just in talking to your guys over the last couple days, they've all mentioned some of the kind of the chippies, as they would say, that just didn't go down in game one. Is there anything that you guys looked at in terms of finishing fundamentals, or is this just the breaks of the game, almost like jump shooting?
I mean, we try to focus on what we can control, and there was plenty in that game that we could control that we could have done better. And the more you do that, the more you execute that, the less you're dependent on the variance of makes and misses. And so that was our focus the last couple of days. It's always our focus. I think it's a strength of our team is we try to tilt the odds in our favor with execution and competitiveness. And we're always trying to look for ways to improve the things we can control as we head into a game.
Michael here in the second row.
Mike Cranes from Sportsnet in Toronto. Just having now we'll have 2 games in 4 days. Does things feel a little bit more in rhythm? And are you expecting just a kind of cleaner, smooth performance starting this?
I always expect our team to play well. They've built that kind of trust over time. The 2 days is different, but it's different for both teams. There's trade-offs of it. It's a long time in between games. It's different from the regular rhythm, but you also get more rest and recovery. And you can really load the tank as you head into the game. And so we'll see how we play tonight, but we're confident coming into it.
Tim, right next door.
Tim Reynolds, AP. Mark, in about half an hour or so, we're going to honor Don Nelson up there with the Daily Award. I know you weren't in the league when his career ended,
or in middle school,
or you were in middle. I'm doing math. It's close. The innovations that he brought to offense.
Yeah.
I guess how familiar were you with those in those middle school years, and like just the fact that some of that stuff still holds up today. What does that sort of say about his legacy?
Yeah, I coached some guys in the G League that were veteran players and that had played in the NBA, and then we've had assistant coaches here over the years that have played in the NBA, and I always was interested in learning about the coaches that they played for, and so I'm a little bit familiar with Coach Nelson through the lens of a couple people that played for him, and I think obviously a giant of the game, but unbelievably ahead of his time, with pace obviously, but also player confidence. I coached a couple guys that played for him that were 10-day type players, and all they talked about was the confidence you had when you played for him. The confidence he instilled in the guys that are down the roster, the way that he would just throw them in the game and expect them to play well. And then even as much as he was an offensive innovator, I think he was a defensive innovator. He was cross-matching aggressively before anybody really was doing that. And years before, he would come out of into games and he'd put Baron Davis on the center to create offensive problems for the other team. And that was just stuff that wasn't happening. And I just not knowing him at all, and certainly not being familiar day to day, it was a different era. I do appreciate the fact that he seemed boundless in terms of what he was willing to do, and he wasn't really relying on what was conventional. And so I have unbelievable respect for him. It's awesome that he's being honored tonight. He say that again. He would have had probably Shea on him. Yeah.
Right, third row side.
Greg Doyle from the Indianapolis Star. You guys have so many elite perimeter defenders, so anybody could pick up Tyrese in the last 6 seconds. Is that the matchup you wanted? Do you practice, obviously, in the game situations? Who do you want on Tyrese when he's going to get the ball in that situation?
It depends on the starting point, and that play was a transition defense play, and so the answer is somebody. Especially when you're playing this team. They're so fast up the floor, they're so well spaced. They move it so quickly that getting to 5-on-5 is always the priority against them. The minute you start to forget about the last play, in general, the minute you try to manipulate cover, who's on who, they will burn you. There was a Nemhart 3 in front of our bench early in the game. It was, I think, the first time out of the game where we were trying to do that. We were trying to bump a matchup out, and the ball moved and found him in the corner. And it's a great lesson against this team. You just, in those areas of the game, when it gets loose and it's off of misses or turnovers, you just have to prioritize getting 5-on-5. It doesn't really matter who's on who. So the fact that the ball got tagged, is the starting point.